Let's talk to Martin Gower, former NHS Trust Chair, because, of course, he knows a thing or two about running a health organisation. Let's see what he makes of this plan. Martin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to
thanks for having me on.
No, good to see you. There's a sort of mixed reaction, isn't there, to this abolition of NHS England? Some people are quite surprised that he's done something quite so dramatic, but others are saying to me, well, you're not really going to get rid of 9,500 people. How can you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole lot about this that you've got to have doubt about.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing obviously is the involvement of unions in anything to do with the NHS.
Yeah.
I mean, if they are going to get rid of that sort of number of people, the compensation they're going to have to pay in terms of redundancy payments will be massive.
Yeah.
Some of these people have served for a very long time. I was around in the NHS as a chairman when NHS England was formed. It was actually called the NHS Commissioning Board. It wasn't, they gave it the name of NHS England. They called themselves that. It wasn't actually set up as that. Actually, the same people who we've been working with nationally and regionally were the same people who became into NHS England. And what I suspect is going to happen is that the same people will move back into the Department of Health and Social Care.
Right. So what do they all do, these people? I mean, 9,500 people is a lot of people that you can just, at a stroke, say you're going to get rid of, because presumably they don't do anything.
Well, they do things, but they're not necessarily core to actually improving patient care or improving public confidence in the NHS. There's a whole lot of things that are nice to do, but are really not necessary.
Right.
And are not particularly helpful either to the NHS trusts who have to deal with all this stuff that they bring in.
Right.
I'm not against abolishing NHS England. In fact, I've called for it quite a few times. But I would say that the alternative seems to me to be almost a political power grab.
Right.
We want to bring this in-house into the Department of Health and Social Care, and I'd love to know what they're doing about social care, because they're not doing much about it.
No, exactly. Well, I was asking the question this morning as well, Martin. If you are, say, the chair of an NHS trust, which you used to be, and you're waking up this morning thinking, how is this going to change my world? How is it going to change his world or her world?
Well, I suppose there's two things. There's hope and expectation. I mean, hope would be that it would change it quite a lot and make life easier and enable you to get on with the job of looking after your patients.
Yeah, but how though?
Well, because one of the things they do is endlessly ask for information. We merged my trust with another trust, an absolutely clear, positive, sensible decision. It wasn't rocket science. And we were working on the same patch, and work was being duplicated. We took them over, we reduced staff numbers as well. But actually, it took us 2 years of banter with NHS England, continuously. Oh, can you give us figures on that? Can we have a meeting about this? And it could have been done in 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's my confidence in NHS England is not that high. And I actually think it's a good thing in one way to get rid of them. But your question is a good one. What are they all doing? That question, I think, is all around the public services.
Yeah.
What are they all doing? A lot of these people will be working from home.
Yeah.
In NHS England, a lot of them. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but it will be quite a significant percentage.
Probably about 9,000.
Working from home?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we had a call from somebody in Leeds who says the Department for Work and Pensions building where NHS England is housed is locally known as the Kremlin, and there's never anybody in it.
No. I don't think you'd have a problem getting a parking space.
No, exactly.
I just think there's a few things here. It's just the same people. They'll move into the DHSC. And I'm not sure I trust what's going on. I'm not sure I believe all the dynamics of what are supposed to be doing and the number of jobs that are going. And I'm not sure it's been thought through. It sounds a bit of a soundbite to me.
Well, I mean, that's this government all over, isn't it? I mean, everything they say isn't quite what it seems. Everything they promise hasn't yet been delivered. Everything they say they're delivering, they're not. I mean, look at this. We got the growth down actually in January to 0.1%. The economy's contracted. In February, this is what Rachel Reeves said: getting more money in people's pockets is my #1 mission. That's why we're going further and faster to deliver economic growth. Except they're not. It doesn't mean anything. It's sort of meaningless soundbite.
Well, we have pretend economists and pretend solicitors who are kind of running things. And I just don't have the level of confidence, frankly, Mike, that this particular issue with the NHS is actually A, going to be achieved at all, or B, is going to make any difference, or C, is actually going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is bringing greater political control over healthcare. Nobody else does this. Nobody else in other countries around Europe, for example, are actually having the healthcare system run by the government. They really, really don't.
And if it's going to be run by the government, that is the worst idea anybody's had.
Absolutely. I mean, the more that's the bit that would scare me.
Right.
And I think it's not really going to work at all.
But this again takes me back, because somebody's asked the question this morning as well, that if the Tories were trying to do this, right, you can imagine the howls of derision that would be coming from the Labour benches, right? The fact that Labour are doing it, it's kind of, they get a pass because the media doesn't have a go at them because they don't think they're going to sell it off. But we've had 14 years of being told by everyone that wanted to criticise the Tory government it's their fault the NHS is not working, right? It now turns out that the government isn't running the NHS, it's the NHS that's running it, which is what I've been saying all along. And it's the NHS that's not working, not the people in government who are not making it work.
Yeah, I mean, the government kind of half work it. And the concept that Andrew Lansley had, which was to have it as an arm's length body, so healthcare will be kind of a bit divorced from the politic-y end of government. For example, I mean, you don't want the NHS to be used as some social structure to whitewash, encourage, we spend much more money on people of need and people, I just think some of those social views were possibly helped. What we have to accept, Mike, is the NHS isn't all bad everywhere. And it really isn't. There are places where where local groups get together, including social care, and put together a pretty good system that works well for the public and the patients. But the trouble is that particularly in the bigger cities, and particularly, I hate to say it, where you have a large increasing population, many of whom don't speak English and all that sort of stuff, I think that causes a really big challenge in the city. I'm extraordinarily lucky living in rural South Warwickshire. We have a pretty good health system here. I can't really criticise it. Well, I can criticise it, but not by that much. But there's a lot of people around the country who have a really poor system. And by the way, if the idea of bringing this more into the political arena is to follow what is done in Wales and Scotland, then thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't think so. Martin, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Former NHS Trust Chair there, saying he's not entirely convinced by this plan of Keir Starmer's. Well, knock me over with the feather is what I would say.